I don't even know how I'm going to introduce myself. If you say...
Why do you want to introduce yourself? Sir, please let us know when you're ready. You're hitting. Thank you. Why do you want to introduce yourself?
Why do I want to introduce myself?
We're recording, by the way.
Isn't that what people do? Like...
To who? You're speaking to me.
To people.
I know who you are.
Okay.
You know who you are.
No, that's great if I don't
They
know
can
you.
figure it out.
All right.
You don't know what your surname means? Tlhoaele.
I've got a thing with a surname. I don't have a surname anymore, so...
How? If I ask my audience, you'd appreciate if they were to give you an explanation of what Tlhoaele means.
They can try. I don't think it means anything. I don't think the spelling is even right. I think it's supposed
Tswana
to...
surname.
Yeah.
You're from the Northwest?
Yes.
Okay, but currently living north of Pretoria?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm honored to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I think we're recording this episode as a fundamentally important psychological, spiritual message to South Africans and Africans.
Yes.
Okay, please go for it. Share your message and then I'll be able to interrogate whatever I want. Why are you here? What's so important that you wanted us to sit on a podcast?
Okay, why am I here? I am on a journey, all right? Spiritual journey. We have to move towards an African economy, right? It is a journey that my grandfathers started, grandfathers being Dr. Semo Tswenyane and Dr. Richard Maponya.
Those are legends.
Yes. So you can imagine little old me having to walk in the footsteps of two giants. Where do I even begin? But they started a journey to an African economy, and I got to join this journey or continue in this journey. For me, it started as a spiritual something. Grew up normally, typical black life, we're struggling with everything. We hate being kids. I didn't like being a child, just planning my future. I'm going to have a corner office, blah, blah, blah. The life that you see on the movies.
Yeah.
Studied accounting, did articles in audit. Right after I finished with my articles, I kept saying, I am locked out of the economy. I don't know how to explain. Now spirituality starts, and I start hearing voices, and how do you explain? Because from home, there's nobody with a spiritual gift or anything. So what is this going on? But I'm hearing voices in my spirit. And that was a journey of me being aligned back to my African identity. And after my grandmother passed on, I get to learn that she is a daughter. She's a daughter of a king of kings. And I have the spiritual authority from that king of kings. Right? So I was sickly. Like, I was actually not just sickly. I was very sick. By the time my grandmother passed, I was diagnosed myasthenia gravis, which means gravely weak muscles.
Jeez.
Right? And the things at the hospital were not testing positive. But the doctors can see, like, you're sick.
Yeah.
Right? MRIs, everything is not positive. It is supposed to be an autoimmune, which means your immune system is attacking itself. True. You have to have a high volume of antibodies or something. Mine were okay. So it was like after all the tests are run, what's wrong with you? But we can't see that.
Something's wrong, but the tests are not picking up anything.
Yeah, so you fit the description of myasthenia gravis, but you're not testing positive. So I had to pray about it, like, hey, if I'm going to die, I'm not going to go from being a girl on heels and everything. Because, like, my muscles were getting weak. I couldn't talk anymore. I was becoming like this. I couldn't, like, it was bad. So I just thought, God,
Christian God?
Yes.
Okay.
I was like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm thankful that I'm alive. I'm like, no, you're either taking me now, or if they don't make a plan,
sure.
I'm not going to drink medication. I will join you in heaven. So make a plan.
Yeah.
Somebody come up and do something about this. And so my ancestors gathered around me to find out what is it. That's what I'm saying. I don't have a surname anymore, because then it has to go through a journey of Tlhoaele, ngwana wa lwala, what's up there? Like, she's not our problem. We can see she's not okay, but pass on to the next surname. Then I go to my mother's surname. So Tlhoaele is my father's surname. Go to my mother's surname. They're like, She must ask her grandmother. She's the one who comes with the problem that she has. So now I have to
These
go.
are your ancestors.
Yes. Because
Communicating
now I
to
can
you.
hear them in my spirit and I don't
So
understand what's happening.
we need to explain this to people that don't understand the spiritual realm. So
Yeah.
you were in hospital sick
Yes.
and you were hearing voices inside your head, which means you were going crazy to the people out there.
Yeah.
But to you, it was your ancestors communicating and saying, look, there's an issue on your father's side, your paternal side. So you're like, let me go to my mother's side, my maternal, there was an issue there. And then the ancestors were like, Ekse, go speak to your grandmother that you're saying you had lost at the time.
Yes. So it's like, you're imagining things. Like I keep hearing conversations, but I have this imagination. But an imagination has to be stimulated by something. Yeah. When you're imagining something you've never heard before, you have to question, what am I hearing now?
Sure.
So it wasn't, I never went through like, you ask the family and you partly knew whatever. I didn't want to do all of that because niggas have worry about get twice or go to church or something. So I was like,
You didn't want to twasa?
no,
Why
I'm
not?
afraid of.
You're afraid of twasa?
Yes.
Why?
The stories that people tell.
Maybe that's the journey you need to go on.
I was like, no ways. You guys have to decide because now I'm like, okay, so clearly I'm called for something.
Yeah.
Let me talk and negotiate. If you want me, talk to me.
Sure.
And if you are saying I should ask somebody else, maybe ask somebody else to do the job.
Sure.
Because I don't want to. When you call for help, it means you have to allow somebody's opinion and guidance. And when you call for help, it means allow yourself to be guided. Do as they say. I'm like,
Correct.
I feel like they're not going to guide me to what I'm hearing.
Yes.
They're obviously going to go to church or read Twasa or something. And I was like, that's not what's happening inside of me. So I'll embrace the journey, but take me through it. If you want me to go through the journey, I'm not wearing anything. I'm not dreaming clothes. I'm not allowing anything. Yeah. I totally refused. So my ancestors had to embrace that. I mean, well, she is our child.
Yeah.
I take after them. And that's where the journey started. Just, they had to explain to me, who am I? What is happening? I just kept hearing kings talk amongst each other. Like, Rabatabi, this is what do I. So Rabatabi is like my grandmother's surname, right? And I think I remember clearly when they said, your grandmother has to now go to the other side. She's raised you in the worldly life, and now she must raise you on the other side. I was like, please, I listened to my ancestors, don't take her. Please. They're like, no, it's not like a punitive something. We're not punishing you for not being obedient, but she has to explain the side to you. And that's where I got to realize that, she passed on to go into a throne room. Like for me, I was like, my grandmother is somebody, so who am I? If Kogu is somebody who goes to a throne room, there was a guard of honor as she walks in, and like kings had to bow. Because in spirit, you understand spirit language. When you're there, you understand what's going on. So I understood that these are kings who bowed to her arrival. And I was like, no, I've got to be a pictured somebody. So God, she was poor. So whatever you owed her, please pay up.
Are you seeing this while you're sleeping or while you're awake?
It's imagination. So it's
what I mean is, like, are you sitting with me now and you're like, hey, I can see my grandmother going into somewhere?
No.
Or are you sleeping?
I'm remembering.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't go into, sometimes it's visions, but it's mostly imagination.
Is it when you're by yourself? I'm trying to figure out what you're explaining because, your story is not unique. In the sense that a lot of people hear voices and they don't understand what they mean.
Yeah.
Of course, some go seek help. I think I'm going crazy. Some buy your twasa, whatever the case may be. So I'm trying to figure out for people that might want to learn, which I'm hearing voices, is this something that you'd entertain while you're awake? Would you go into a room by yourself? Is it something that while you're dreaming, you'd see? And then even you communicating back with them, is this something you're doing out verbally to be like, hey, stop it, I'm not going to do that? Or is it conversations you're having internally, and is it while you're sleeping, while you're awake?
It's like a daydreamer.
When you're alone?
It's like I'm a daydreamer.
So you could be sitting here.
Yeah, and it's happening.
And then something's happening. And then you're communicating also in your head. You're like,
I talk alone a lot.
Verbally.
I'm always talking on my own when I'm in the car, when I'm alone in the room. Best believe you'll find me talking on my own. And I guess that's part of the process of me communicating this imagination.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm sitting here, I hear something and I answer them. I will hear it, and then I will process what I'm hearing, and then I'll give an opinion like, hey, there's a conversation here, you're talking about my life and nobody's asking me. Because part of the conversation, when they had to gather to talk about me, it's like, okay, now we've gathered, she's not Tlhoaele, she's not Pega. Rabutabi comes in to now evaluate or she's sick, what's wrong? And he says, she's the gateway to the African economy. I need a throne and I need a son of a king, and I need, what else did he say he needs? Oh, and like somebody to prepare me as suitable help to what is required. And this is when the king that I consider, I call the father of kings. I don't want to mention the surname. People catch feelings when you talk about their surnames. So he's the father of kings, Tonga king. Then Motswenyane came up for the throne, and then Mabonya came up to help prepare me to assist this this journey, like in terms of what are the skills that I'm going to need.
Are you in any way blood related to Dr. Sam Motswenyane or Dr. Richard Maponya?
So,
or are they, because we've lost them, unfortunately, in the physical world, or do they become your grandfathers in the spiritual world, but not necessarily a blood relation?
so with Sam Motswenyane, I'm a stepdaughter to Sam Motswenyane, like my mother is married to the son.
Okay.
So that would be a stepdaughter.
Your mom was married to?
The son.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam Motswenyane.
So you're a step granddaughter?
Step granddaughter.
Okay, to
right?
Dr. Sam Motswenyane.
Yes.
I was
And
meant to
then-
interview him, by the way, 2 years ago. I think one of his grandkids reached out to me. We were meant to plan to go and visit him on the farm.
Yeah.
Time happens, we get busy. I think someone may have interviewed him during that time. I hope he shared enough knowledge, but I know there's a whole lot missing because the average South African doesn't know the story of African Bank.
The thing is, he shares the official NAVCOC story. Right?
NAVCOC being the body.
The Chamber of Commerce that drove the whole movement to founding African Bank.
Yeah.
But then there's another story, which is the one that I know. So I'm a step granddaughter to Sam Motswenyane, but I'm a biological granddaughter to Sam Motswenyane's grandfather. So like when I walk in the bank, there's a voice that said that I'm your 5th generation grandfather. And fortunately for me, Ntate Mogolo had left a family tree. So I had to ask at home, there's somebody in the bank saying he's my 5th generation grandfather. I need to find who that is. I look on the family tree, I'm like, this guy.
Yeah.
Who is he? He says Ntate Mogolo is named after him. And he says to me, you are my biological granddaughter, and that's why you come after Sam Motswenyane. So the journey that I started with Sam, you're the next.
Okay.
And with Maponya, he is my 6th generation grandmother. Is the woman who led Richard Maponya in the journey that she went through.
Okay.
When I did articles in audit, I carried the same spirit. But because it's a female, I wasn't aware that I have a spiritual anything going on. I learned later as I visit the bank that, because when I get there, I'm able to like read the environment.
Yeah.
Is there a risk in the office? Is there opportunity? What's going on? Why isn't the bank becoming what it's supposed to become? And as you
You're
talk,
speaking now about the real bank,
yes, the real
the
bank.
head office,
Yes.
when you walk in,
Yes, when I'm there,
that
like
you feel energy.
I don't feel energy. The bank talks to me like, welcome home. I'm like, this is weird, guys. One day I'm just going to faint in front of people and they're not going to understand what's happening. But the bank talks to me. It tells me stuff. If somebody's praying for something, because when I step in there, it's like Bokhosi Bufihlile. It's like the throne room. So a throne room that's in heaven, that is the earth part of the throne room.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I'm at African Bank, I hear, and the other time I was there and she was telling me, because I can see, Hore, the bank has not become what it's supposed to do, because I'm feeling it in my spirit that it's bigger than this, what's going on. And as she guides me, Hore, no, you need to speak from the outside. The voice is trapped inside. And then I'm like, oh, finally, Mkhulu is not speaking. That's the Mokgedi Motswenyane spirit. Like, okay, now Mkhulu is not speaking. At least I'm back to myself. And she says to me, no, that's Maponya. I'm like, oh my goodness. Who am I? Where's my voice? Then I'm realizing, oh no, I know this voice. I did articles with her. She's guided me. And yeah.
Why was African Bank set up as far as you know? And in your understanding now, especially spiritually, why do you think it should have been set up, and what do you think it's supposed to do? So I'm asking officially, why was it set up? NAFCOC and those things. And then from a spiritual perspective, why do you think it was meant to be set up, and what is it supposed to be?
So in the physical world, they needed a bank that is a representation of Black people.
Okay.
All right. So in life, there's the truth of our spirit and the truth of our conscious mind.
Okay.
Sometimes we do things because we have an idea, because of what we read in the world, and we do it. But your spirit knows what it's supposed to do, and your spirit is allowing you to do certain things because you're anyway on track, even if you're not really understanding what you're doing.
Yeah.
So from my understanding in spirit, Ntate Mogolo Sam Muzwanyane is saying, guys, okay, I think it started la. Ntate Mogolo Maboya was the president of NAFCOC by then. But for him to agree to this, it's because the authority where he's born from is linked to the assignment of establishing a gateway to the African economy.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
To me, yeah.
So now they're at NAFCOC in 19-something.
Sure.
Right? They're having that meeting and they're discussing, as Black people, we have these challenges and how do we move forward? Richard Maponya is the president by then, right? So it was envisioned under his leadership, okay?
Yeah.
And then he goes on to focus on being an entrepreneur. Then Sam Muzwanyane takes over from him. I don't know if there's another president between them, but after Ntate Mogolo Maponya was the president, comes Sam Muzwanyane, and he leads the journey of the bank, right? So that is the official story, that Black people needed the representation. They were thinking, how about our money is used to benefit us?
Yeah.
But when I sat with them in 2019, what they...
Physically, spiritually?
Physically.
In real life?
Physically,
Okay.
yeah. I sat with them in 2019. We talked about it, and, they'll always go back to why they founded African Bank. But I was hearing them from a spiritual aspect. Like, I was complaining that the Black people that you guys trusted in the movement are not who we can depend on. And I said, Ntate Mogolo, because he loved African Bank like his baby. I was like, Ntate Mogolo, we'll start another bank in your honor.
Sure.
And he says, absolutely not. You're not doing that. You're going to get African Bank back. We started the bank for you. I'm like, for me, like for us, our generation, or
Sure.
like, me, what is that? What?
Yeah.
I was just joking. I didn't mean I'm going to start a bank for you. I was trying to make him feel better, but he took it seriously. Like, no, you've got to get the bank back, help the bank find its identity. We started the bank for you. So, okay, I heard him, I understood him, that the bank is important. And he did say that the movement can't continue if every generation starts from the beginning.
Yeah.
So you have to get the bank so that the movement can continue to the next step or in the next level.
Yeah.
Right? So I asked Ntate Mogolo Maponya, okay, I hear, but how do we do it? Oh yeah, Ntate Mogolo Motsoanyane then asked me, like, if you want to start a bank, why would you start a bank? I'd be like, because I can. Do you need a reason? Because it's unemployment to start a bank. I'm going to be the first Black woman to do something, And he said, no, you can't just start a bank because you can start a bank. You need a reason. So it was like, an exam being asked a trick question. Then Tate Mogolo Maponya jumped in, like, okay, let me tell you why we need a bank. And he explained the story of when he was in Brazil and how they managed to turn around the economy. But essentially, I was able to sum up that we need systems that recognize Africans for who they are.
Okay.
Right? And I heard him, and I think he saw me hear him because he was so happy, like, you get it. So I said to him, okay, I understand what you mean, but if it's gonna be at a bank, it's gonna have to be something systematic. Right? And because I had been doing research in neuroscience, I understand that human behavior, how the brain works, is a pretty consistent. It has a pattern. It has a formula. I said, if we can find a system, I can definitely do that. I wouldn't know how the rest of the movement must go, but I can definitely find a formula. And he was so excited to hear that. For him, it's like, and the two of them said and agreed that, like, it's her. She's going to lead her generation. And like, then what's this? Like, I'm not trying to lead anybody. I don't get leading people. I'm not that person. So even when people refer to me as a leader, I'm like, I'm just trying to mind my business. I'm not trying to lead people. I'm a weird person like that. I don't take people along where I'm going because I'm not gonna be normal.
Sure.
But I heard it like, okay, she'll lead a generation, and they agreed to it. So in the spiritual journey, now that the Mogolo Maponya passes away 6 weeks after that conversation. Right? So now I'm left with an assignment. When you promise somebody something and he passes away, you can't not do it.
Yeah.
Like, you passed away excited that you're going to do it. So I had to figure out, okay, how is this formula going to look? But then, just doing research and just kept typing in keywords of the things that you're explaining to me, I learned that, it's behavioral economics. Actually, something like that does exist. And the more I study behavioral economics, the more I'm realizing that, no, man, they were behavioral economists. African Bank is probably one of the biggest behavioral brands. If they focus on being a behavioral brand, they'd be a leading brand.
Sure.
Because they were founded by behavioral economists. They were not founded for profit. They were founded to represent an identity.
Yeah.
And this is what's done in behavioral economics. People making purchase decisions based on sentiments, not necessarily based on costs and whatever. So I focused for like 4 years or something, just trying to figure out this formula. How are we going to do it systematically? Then when I finally get the formula, that the Mogolo Mazwanyane now passes on, and he passes on to an idea of having a bank account in his honor. Based on Bible principles of wealth and African principles of wealth. And as I'm designing that bank account, he passes away. Now I'm left with another one. I can't disappoint him because now I'm busy with this, and then his spirit lets go. And so in that, now I have, okay, it's behavioral economics. I understand it can be a behavioral brand. Modzwenyane, how does he come into the picture? But now I have a full picture of them having connected with the spirits, now understanding them from the physical part. I've met with them. I know what they told me. I've done research, listened to the interviews that they've done. I know the official Nafkok story. I know them from spirit. How does it all come together for one story? So now I understand that the Modzwenyane authority was able to establish a throne. Where kings work, they need an office, and an office is the throne that recognizes royal authority. That was the Modzwenyane part. And if you're going to have a gateway to the African economy, somebody has to manage equity. When people are going to have equity, so the African economy would be something like, how Jewish communities do business. I think that's like the best reference of it. There's that for Africa. And if you're going to have an African economy, people would want to have equity in this movement that you have. A bank would be a best place to do that. If investors want to invest into the African economy, a bank would be a good facilitator of that. People want to participate, and a king has to measure, this is where my people are, these are the people who make up an economy. A bank account would be an effective place to do that. So Sam Modzwenyane is the how of the bank, as in, let's get systems to do this thing. Now, Richard Maponya is the why of the bank. We need it because we need systems. And when you study his legacy, when it comes to how we do it, as an entrepreneur, he explains that for Africans to get fair value for their product or whatever it is that they offer, they would need an African value chain, because he's done business with whites, and he always complained that I was not getting value for my money. I had to settle for less because there's no African value chain. So if Africans want to get fair value, they need an African value chain, and they need a system that recognizes them for like African realities. So it's almost as if he was testing the environment. So when he passes on, after having tested the environment, this is the African reality. So how that would look, it would be something that's executed as a behavioral brand to say, Africans, come, let's gather here. so that we establish an environment that recognizes us. We can bank together on the sentiment of African skills building an African economy for the benefit of Africa. Am I making sense?
Yeah. You spoke about 3 things. The second one was the son of a king. What were those 3 things? Sorry, I just want to write a note.
Okay, so now we've got Mozonyane for the throne. We've got Maponya for the skills, which is behavioral economics and the sentiment for buying. Son of a king was necessary because now I have, and that's the thing that was making me sick, I have Kubaya Bukhosi in my spirit. It's clearly very heavy authority. A woman can't carry that.
A woman can't carry that.
It's too heavy. Like I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk in heels, it's it's heavy authority. Okay. And Rabotabi, who is the king of kings, Yabagwena, only has daughters. He doesn't have sons. So when a daughter...
You're speaking about the current Tsonga king?
Tswana.
Tswana king. Oh, you mentioned Tsonga king earlier.
A Tsonga king he's a father of kings. So now when you go through spirituality, part of you is taking you back to the Africa before we were disrupted by apartheid and everything.
Okay.
So now I'm a daughter of a Tsonga king who is the father of kings. If you want to refer to the Bible, he would be like the original Adam and then the original Abraham. He's that guy. A lot of...
This is when they were called the Batonga. You don't know?
I don't know what they were called. Problem. But I think he's originally from Mozambique. But now they are there in South Africa, Limpopo.
Sure. It might be the Batonga people or the Tonga people, which many people today call the Tsonga people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's from there.
So now you're referencing the Tswana king and saying he only has daughters.
Yes.
Do you know who the Tswana king is?
From me, the surname that resonates with that identity is...
not formal?
Yes. Okay. That's Rabotabi. Rabotabi.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the king who comes up when I talk. Like, he's a king of kings, but the Khosi Pele were like spiritually gifted. You manage the kingdom with spiritual authority.
Sure.
So it may be that he wasn't known, but he was known by kings and he communicated to them spiritually, because now we don't understand that version of Africa. But I'm also able to like detect when I'm speaking to like sons of kings. So I would think I'm probably the best reference of how he functioned. I do talk to kings in spirit. Okay. I do connect to people's king spirit, and I think that's how he functioned. So that king, a king of king, Yabagwen, right? And he only has daughters. He doesn't have sons.
This is an existing person currently?
He's my grandmother's grandfather. So the surname is there.
Rabutab?
Yes.
Okay.
But
sorry, I need you to reference when you're speaking, just if you're speaking in the real world or in the spiritual world, so that I don't
So
get
Rabutapi is my maternal grandmother's grandfather.
Okay.
And that's how I got to connect with that surname.
No problem.
Through my grandmother, right? So as he comes on, so now I connected to my grandmother, who then passed away, who connects to her mother, and her mother connects me to her grandfather or somebody whose surname is Rabutapi, and that Rabutapi will connect me to the Rabutapi that we all don't know. So now when I talk about the Rabutapi, I'm actually talking about a grandfather I don't know, but I was able to trace him back in my lineage. There are people who carry that surname. Like,
and he only had daughters?
Yes. Oh. So in spirit, he comes off as a king, Kepapadi princess, a king who only has daughters to carry his royal authority.
And you want to find the son of a king for your purposes? So
for me, because I carried this heavy authority, it was like, she needs to get married because there's a king who awaits this authority. How Kubayaba Khosi moves from one family to the other, the two must get married so that the king can take Kubayaba Khosi from me.
Sure.
And then he carries the authority and I can do like part of the assignment. I can still see in spirit. I can continue the movement of African economy. Yeah. But there are certain things I can't do because now I'm married in spirit.
So you're looking for a husband?
No, not looking.
You're looking for a prince.
I'm not
to be your husband.
This is what happened. Yeah. After Sembozonyane passes on, because they are doing the real Africa, ne? Yes. And we are living the world, which is we have to pretend to not be African like that. In that week, Mokgethi Motswenyane, that's Sam Motswenyane's grandfather, is holding me, is saying, you can't carry this assignment. It's too heavy for you. You're getting married. I'm like, why can't I do it myself? In my imagination, I'm talking back and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, okay, let's put the Motswenyane weight on you, carry the economy. I was like, I will marry any man who will carry Mkhulu for me.
Sure.
Because I can't carry this. This weight is way too heavy.
Yeah.
Just by me saying, I will marry any, it's like, that's it. The king comes in spirit.
Yeah.
I can see that Kubaya Bukhosi is then moved from me and put on a throne of a Zulu king. Kubaya Bukhosi doesn't stay on an individual, it's put on a throne.
Okay.
So that king, who I understand who the king is, has to finalize which son of his is willing to take his responsibility, his identity, and execute what he's able to do.
In the real world.
In the real world.
Does
So
this,
the process
does this
starts.
look like you marrying the current Zulu king?
No,
or
not the one that people know.
not Umisu Zulu. But
Not
you'd
him.
consider marrying one of the Zulu princes.
I have to. I don't have a choice because that's where Kubaya Bukhosi Yabakwena is. So I must follow
Are they aware of this?
the person.
The Zulu monarch, are they aware that this
No.
has to happen?
No.
This is something you would need to communicate with them.
Yeah, it's something that still has to unfold.
Okay, so you need to find one of the Zulu princes, and you're saying you don't think or you hope it's not Miso Zulu.
I know it's not.
Okay.
So for you to connect with the spirit of the king, he will tell you who he is. You can't guess king's identities. Their surnames are very important.
Yeah.
For you to actually communicate with the king, you need to spend enough time with the spirit, and then he's going to tell you, this is who I am. So I know his name. So I know the related surname. And then you have to see that this is the son that carries you best. I know 2 of his sons. I'm like, this one, I can hear he knows your story. But this one is you.
So there's 2 sons of Uzwelithini that are potentially meant to be your
Why
husband.
do you like to...
I'm trying to simplify it. Angiti,
Let's call him Zulu
tasked.
King.
You've been tasked with a very heavy job.
Yeah.
So however you feel about it and however funny you feel, that's your problem. But this is something that you need to communicate, whether it happens or not, which
yes.
means it will pass on to someone else, sadly. But you need to communicate that I've been called in the spirit world to be married to, for example, Umiso Zulu. I'm going to communicate it. I'm going to go on podcasts. I'm going to write articles. Whether he heeds the call or not is up to him. But
Yeah.
I need to communicate so
Yeah.
that we can come together, take on this responsibility, and try and get back African Bank
Yes.
and use it as a portal into the African economy and as a
Yes.
gateway for everyone.
Yes.
Whether he heeds it or not is up to him. But I've let them know. And I'm gonna carry on with the work that I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
Just being to the spiritual world, doing admin, running around, telling the story. If he wants to marry me and carry the weight, cool. If he doesn't, the weight will stay hanging, maybe onto my kids or onto someone else who gets the calling. But it will have been known that Ukiya in 2025 tried.
Said, yeah.
And it's just the Zulu princes laughed and they were like, hey, sisters, no
What are you
thanks.
talking about? Yeah.
But whoever I was meant to be connected to, hopefully as they get older, they'll be like, hey, I found myself watching this lady's podcasts and I used to read her articles and I saw her work and something used to bug me. And it's like,
Yeah.
maybe you're the guy that was meant to marry her. And by marry, we also don't necessarily mean mshad. It means go find her,
Yes.
go work with her.
Yes.
Who knows? The spiritual world might not want you guys to get married, have
does
children.
happen.
It might just want you guys to partner.
Yeah.
And maybe the child that you have is the rebirth of African Bank.
Yes.
Maybe the marriage is you guys being business partners, whatever the case may
Yeah,
be in
it
the
could
calling.
be.
But someone needs to take
Okay,
it
so
up.
let me tell you the name of the king because I know that
A
if
real
the-
person.
No, the king, the one that would be known to be not the actual son,
Okay.
the king himself, right? So the throne where Kubaya Bukhosi Yabakwena went to is the throne Mzilikazi. But the king who speaks and discusses Libakwena what is going on is Uma Shoban, right? So that is the king that I'm supposed to, the lineage. So like now Bakwena have a covenant of a marriage between them, Bukhosi ba Bakwena and Bukhosi ba, well, the Zulu king, Iling Mzilikazi Kamashoban. Or Yeah, that's why the identity goes Mzilikazi ka Mashobane, because Mashobane is the one who discusses what happens there, and Mzilikazi is the one who carries the throne.
These are not Ndebele people.
I don't know. I call him Zulu King because I get the people about Kulum. I haven't really looked into. I did some research. I'm aware that I don't know if he founded the Ndebele community,
Yeah.
but is he not originally Zulu?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Umzilikazi and Usoshangani as well break away from what we know as Zulu. They may not have been Zulu, but they broke away when Mushaga was conquering and consolidating all the families in that area into a Zulu nation. And then they would break away. Coming from there, today we'd say they came from the Zulu, but there was no such thing as Zulu at that time. So the people you might be looking for might be the Ndebeles, but I guess it's worth a search.
Yeah.
Because if it's Omzilikazi Gamashobane, then that might be South Africa or Zimbabwe in terms of where they may be based.
Yeah. And the relevance of this is also, so Bakwena are not very cultural people. For them, their anointing is get a gateway to the African economy. But even African economy is going to be African, it has to be African in culture. So Bakwena can establish a throne, which is African Bank, which works very well as a modern institution. It doesn't have to follow any cultural element. But now for it to have its complete identity, then comes the Zulu King, who's saying, for an African economy to be African, it needs African principles, it needs an African culture, and that's why Bakwena have to marry Mazulu as the custodians of culture. So one would be the custodian of the gateway to the economy, and the other one would be the custodian of culture. And when the two thrones come together, they then cover the African economy.
Okay. Please also look up Abantu Baka Khumalo, because in their clan names, they also have Mzilikazi Gamashobane.
Yeah.
On the notes that you raised, the first one is, I'm not sure if you've researched this lady and if you think she has any role to play in your calling. YWB and Young Women in Business Network, Ntabeleng Dikgotsi, who's trying to set up YWBN Mutual Bank. If maybe she's part of your journey and if maybe you must collaborate with her to maybe send her the message of, Dr. Sam Mutswenya and Dr. Richard Maponya's spirits have asked me to come and speak to you and say, instead of building this bank, please help us get back African Bank, because they didn't want us to build things from scratch because the groundwork has already been made. And how you feel about that?
So I know Ntabeleng did speak to Ntate Mogolo, and I just watched that clip. I wasn't there. And he advised her, go to African Bank. Yeah. So imagine you're trying to say, I'm starting a bank, and he says, go to African Bank.
Yeah.
And the reason he'd say that is that African Bank is, can I say, the mother body? That's the gateway to the African economy that you're trying to build.
Yeah.
That is the one that has spiritual authority by kings. And also in his journey of founding African Bank, he spoke to other kings. So that original covenant from in Africa, we don't know, was reaffirmed with his journey of founding African Bank. So the other banks that come, maybe she just has to buy into the bank, like buy shares. Like other banks also have equity in the bank. So maybe she can do that. Yeah. And that's how she's going to connect in being able to serve the assignment that she wants to serve. That might explain
why they've struggled.
It could
because maybe the spiritual world is saying, we won't let this new bank thrive. Not because we don't want it to, because we need them to come back here. And similarly, when African Bank was taken over, funny enough, by Jewish owners, at some point it had issues, reckless lending, but it could also be the spiritual world saying, this bank was not meant for you. So you're not going to succeed. It needs to go back to the original owners.
So I think with regard to Ntabeleng, it would be a matter of the cause you're trying to serve is an African one. And the only African gateway is here.
Sure.
So I think she may have struggled to be like, the people that you're trying to access, you have to access them via African Bank. Whether it's you buying shares or partnering with them, whichever way it looks like, if you want to serve in the African economy, African Bank is where everybody's going to gather. Banks can buy shares there. King houses buy shares there. The people buy shares there. Only the bank, because that's your equity of the African economy. You can go on and start your bank, but you will be a bank under African Bank.
Sure.
There's also a big bank that I do see in spirit. The other time, I saw something in my spirit, then I wrote down the strategy and everything as I was doing behavioral economics. When I check on YouTube, the leader of that bank is explaining the strategy that they want to do, and they were talking about customer satisfaction, and he was talking about he needs a one-screen view, I think, to manage different bank functions into one screen to manage customer satisfaction. I'm like, but I dreamt this thing. Here it is. I wrote it, but it has shares in African Bank. So I'm just showing you that when you buy into African Bank, you are buying into the African journey of it. You are a baby of African Bank, even though they are bigger.
What bank is that?
Can I say?
It's up to you.
I'm just going to call it the Blue Bank.
Okay.
Yeah, we all know what the Blue Bank is. So, yeah.
They have a similar vision. Okay.
Yeah, the father of kings does communicate to me that, no, I'm at that bank. So I had an option of either working with that bank, then Mzonyane in spirit says, no ways, I have a bank ready for Bokhosi Bahaya. She goes to African Bank and not the Blue Bank. I'm like, wow, I need somebody to pay me.
My next reference becomes the Royal Bafokeng and Royal Bafokeng Holdings. And a big shout out to Leruo Mulutlegi. You spoke about equity. You spoke about how the how the Jews run the economy. You spoke about something that would make me think of a sovereign wealth fund, because Royal Bafokeng Holdings almost operates like that. I think it might be worth $4 billion or so.
Yeah.
And it becomes interesting because as a Tswana speaker, they are Tswana speaking people. And what they've done is they've managed to own their land, very importantly. They managed to benefit from the resources on their land, being the platinum. They've diversified into other industries. I'm not sure if they have a share in African Bank, interestingly. And that the proceeds that they make there are focused on cultural preservation, which you spoke about. They focused on development and education for the, I don't know if it's the Bafokeng people, but the Royal Bafokeng people.
Yeah. Bafokeng.
I don't know if you have any views around that. Merging the Royal Bafokeng Holdings with the African Bank. Maybe there's a link with Kgosi Leruo, for example. I don't know if he's got a succession plan, and if maybe you might be part of that succession plan for them as well, saying, look, there was talks about the son of a Zulu king. It might be the son of a Ndebele king. It might be Okumalo. But, I'm from the Northwest. I'm Setswana speaking. There might be a link here. And you guys have some type of model which is defended by kings. It has a king covenant. Yes. How do we take the work that you guys have done and merge it with African Bank so that we scale what we're doing?
When I think of Royal Bafokeng, before the gateway was translated into a bank, the gateway to the African economy was in mining.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible that where this African identity originated, we are all probably siblings. And with them, they were able to use mining as a gateway to the economy, right? And then with another lineage being the Mzonyane one, then they translated gateway into banking. Because I've audited a mine before, and mines are not, I don't think they can carry the economy anymore.
Yeah,
mines are running dry. They're not that. So now a gateway would evolve from, back in our grandfather's days, it was probably they met through cultural practices. You had to perform this ritual to know that you are linked to this king, and then it was maybe mining. But now it's banking, and we're going to use talents. People serving each other with their talents to build. So it's probably, because you never know who is stuck doing what. You have your own spiritual journey. Somebody else is dreaming something. So maybe with them, it's a matter of join African Bank. They are the continuation of what you guys started. Yeah.
And another reference for me, when you spoke about behavioral economics, okay, there were actually a couple of notes there. When you speak behavioral economics, I think of Professor Mohammed Yunus from Bangladesh, who set up Grameen Bank. May have been a spiritual calling for him because he saw women working with their hands, making things, and he wanted to create a bank for them, offering microloans so that they could scale. He won a Nobel Prize. The bank is $1 billion bank, and I think that's worth studying as a behavioral, linking it with Stokvels. How do we use the Grameen Model Bank, use Stokvels, which Africans created themselves, under the umbrella of African Bank, to see how we can create something similar? Or Mama have a society, what's it called? Stokvel, Hoi Society. There's a term, man. I forget it now. But helping those women who come together to pool money to say, we as African Bank, using African principles, understand that you guys have collaborated together to come and build something, and we want to empower you in these ways because this was done for you. But study how Grameen Bank did it. And when you spoke about Jews, I thought of Adrian Gore as well, and I thought of Discovery, because Discovery Bank is trying to do that. It's trying to say, we've done it in medical aid, where with Vitality, if you exercise, if you eat well, if you go to the gym, you get these benefits. I'd like to think, they can correct me if they're wrong, but Discovery Bank is meant to do that. It's how do you bank? How do you live? And we'll tailor your bank account to speak to you. So how can African Bank also borrow from that existing system to say, but Africans have got Stokvels, they've got funerals, they have weddings, they have whatever. How do we incorporate African ways of living in a form of behavior? You are an 18-year-old boy opening a bank account. As an African, you will want to get married one day. You'll have to pay lobolo one day. You'll need to get a home one day. Your kids will need to go through these cultural
They do have
customs.
that account called Usiku.
I think it's new.
Yeah,
right?
they do have a
I think I've
product
seen
like
it.
that.
So I'm just saying, fully saying, African Bank, if you are an African and you proudly follow that, you have no choice but to bank there because it aligns to the way you live.
Yeah.
And even the way it charges you, the things that it exposes you to. African Bank has a relationship with its customers, its clients, to say, we just found out you just turned this age. We just found out you turned that age. We'd like to call you into the bank to have a conversation. Are you planning to get married? Have you found someone? Because we are about how Africans behave. We want you to have an investment portfolio. Do you have cattle? Do you have a farm? If you don't, we've got products that help you buy into an African economy. If we're still mining, as a member of our bank, because Africa is resource rich, we've got investments in the DRC. We take our patients, or not our patients, our clients, and we take them on a journey to the DRC to go and see the mines, to say, this is where your wealth is. We want you to know it because you bank here, and because we make sure that the ethos is to say, we will teach you how to be an African even if you don't.
Yeah.
And we will help you build wealth and have equity, because we have been built for that, to make you wealthy as an African. And we'll teach you your customs. And if you don't know, we've got programs that'll show you, this is your music. This is where you must go. If you don't know your songs, if you don't know the cultural practice, come to the bank. Not only do we bank money, but we bank wealth and history, spiritual wealth, cultural wealth, and historical wealth that you can come and access here. And you must also deposit whatever you're learning into our library, which is a bank as well.
Yeah.
I just wrote those notes. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think, because for now they're focused on the NAFCOC part of their identity, which is lending for businessmen and stuff. But from the spiritual aspect that I understand it, it's they need to focus more on the name. You know, Africans, we believe in names. What does their name mean and stuff like that? So if they honor what the name African Bank means and what it means to be a gateway to the African economy, I think that's when they'll be able to speak better to the products that they have. They do have some instinct, African instinct. They are on the right track, but I feel like the NAFCOC journey is perhaps a bit distractive to what they're trying to achieve. If they can focus on, if we are the center of where Africans meet to build Africa, whether you are meeting in skills, you are meeting in preservation of whatever wealth is there? How do we create products to speak to that? But I also know that because I'm married, I deal with the spirit of the Zulu king, right? And for him, he's like, I can't work in a corporate environment because it does not have the cultures to honor a king. So those would be something to look at. But I'm supposed to be starting a podcast, which is a bit heavy to push, where it has been anointed as an entity of authority to carry the responsibilities that the bank can't do. It would be too weird. Imagine, yes, something's granddaughter, if you want to run a bank, you've got to marry her, and then you're going to have the relevant authority to run the bank. You can't do that. It would disrupt. I mean, if everybody can come, it's like, my grandfather is this, I need to bring my husband to work. It wouldn't work. So that is what I spent the last year explaining to the kings, that there are some things they can't be done within the bank, and then throne room talk was authorized as a throne, like, okay, here on throne room talk, you have to honor the real African culture. What was supposed to happen when the king passes on? I'm like, I don't know. Like, you're going to learn. That's why you're getting a podcast.
Yeah.
How is the king honored? What does it mean to be a king? What is the king's authority? Why are kings greeted like this? And all of those things have to be honored in order for the Motswanyane spirit to continue protecting the bank. And the Zulu king can now come in because he's not compromising the fact that he's the custodian of culture. He's like, I'm a custodian of culture, and I'm not going to let corporate culture dilute who I am because I can't do certain things. So take up some of the authority that is with African Bank, remove it from them, and put it in an entity that will be able to honor those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think the current Black leaders in this country are spiritually and physically blocking what African Bank is meant to be? Or do you think they are serving Africans and Black people?
I think we never got to the part where we are thinking what it means to be free. For a lot of people, freedom meant you get to choose who you want to be. So if you don't want to be African anymore, you can be a Black person following Western culture, and it's okay. So because
Please repeat that. That's actually very important.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be an African,
Yes, you can be
you
a
just
Black
become
person.
a Black person.
Yeah, a Black person following Western culture, and you've got the freedom of will to do that. So I think a lot of people have exercised freedom to be that.
Sure.
And we haven't gotten to thinking about, actually, now that we are free, what are we supposed to be fighting for? Because now we can say, but we want to be African. But being African includes our spirituality. It's a big part of our identity. How do we acknowledge that in the systems? Yeah, so I think we've just come into what we are finding. And we also have to understand that in a day where Buntate Mogolo Motswanyane started the journey, there are certain things they couldn't fight for. You can disrupt the system, but you can't disrupt all of it.
Yeah.
So to a certain extent, they started a mission, but they had to assimilate to some of the practices that are there. It has to be progressive, just a bit for this generation and a bit for the next generation. And where we come in, I believe we're supposed to say, okay, now that we have authority in banking, how do we acknowledge an African identity holistically? So I think leaders haven't thought about how do we embrace being African? And also from the spirit realm, and I'm watching African Bank being protected for Africans. The bank has not been banking for a long time, right? If the white people established things by their authority for their children, are they going to allow us to own what they built for their own? Would that be reasonable? If African Bank kept collapsing because it wasn't under the authority of an African king, if you take that sentiment and you take it to what did the other authority build for its children, is it fair to expect that we are going to build wealth on their system that they built for their children? It's a matter of go home, go build your own.
Sure.
You are now in day one. Well, they did the day zero of setting up the foundation for us. But then we have to realize that all we have so far is a bank. And everything else we have to do because what is already there was not built on our authority. So maybe it's not for us. And that's why we're struggling to progress. Maybe that's why we're struggling to build wealth. You know, we look like we have irresponsible money habits, but maybe the money just doesn't know us like that. That's what I'm thinking.
How do you explain what an African economy is? If someone were to ask you, speak about a gateway to the African economy, what is the African economy?
It is where Africans meet, they gather on a sentiment that they believe in, and they honor their culture, which will recognize the entire lineage, ancestral authority, and everything. And out of that, Black people serving each other in skill, where economic activity happens, that unit is measured as an economy. So an African economy would be Africans gathering to be African, to serve each other as Africans. And when you measure that unit, it's going to be an African economy.
Does it only have to do with people, or does it include the land, the resources, and the animals?
I think the land is important because for me, when I went through my spiritual journey, I had to be somewhere between Gauteng and Northwest. And even when I step into African Bank, the bank talks to me. It tells me things about the bank. So for me, it tells me that home is important to connect with the land, plays a certain role in your ability to command the land, because the bank knows itself to now honor Semozonyane. But I was working there in 2019. Within that building, I made a request. I said, this thing's not a bank. It needs to become a bank. And I asked for it to honor Semozonyane and Richard Mapoy. When the team came in, they don't know that I've worked there. They've never heard anything from me, but they did exactly what I said. So when I was on the land and I commanded, and Ubuntu were not recognized by the bank back then, but I spoke from within the bank, and it happened. So when we honor, when we partner with the land of our ancestors, and we speak from authority and command, for me, my experience has been, then Africa honors you back. It does the thing that you commanded. So I think the land would be important, but we would have different relationships with the land. My land is a bank, and for somebody else, it's another part of the land. Maybe it's agriculture, maybe it's mining. It's how they connect with that land. And maybe also, because when you speak of African wealth, it's like cattle and, stuff like that. So I can only speak to my experience and my journey, but I would imagine that if everybody else were to bring their experience and what they are experiencing to be a need that they feel in their spirits, but we need to have a conversation, because now we are working with one man's thinking, this is just my experience. And if you're speaking to other people and you hear them make sense about their experience, we'd be able to see, but actually there's something here that's supposed to happen.
The reason I'm asking is if you speak about Africans gathering and transacting skills, products, service, and you call that an African economy, when I ask about land and the animals and the resources, I'm trying to figure out, does an African economy include Europeans here transacting? Does it include Americans mining? Does it include the Chinese coming to set up game reserves for people to see animals? Or is it only about the people, Black Africans, transacting? Does the African economy, when you speak about a gateway to economy, does it include other nationalities from the rest of the world? Can an African economy exist in Europe, where Nigerians and Ghanaians have met to run hair salons and trade goods? Can an African economy exist in America, where there are African kids who are creating technology, etc.? Can an African economy exist in China, where Black people have gone there to export manufactured products? Or is it specific to just on the African continent? And is it specific to only African people? Or does it include, is it just about the people wherever they may be? Or does it include the continent and the animals on the continent, etc.?
I think it is wherever the spirit of Africa can be identified. You can be in America, but if your ancestors are here and they're saying, you are crying from America, but we can hear you from all the way there, and we want to intervene and we want to empower you there. I think wherever the spirit of Africa is, that would be included. And as to non-Black people, when I listened to the NAFCOC journey and what was the agreement there, the agreement was they would have a minority interest. They would have to
In
invest.
NEPCOG.
No, in African Bank. And if I'm saying African Bank was built on an existing covenant of an old Africa, what is it that they agreed that was able to hold the bank so firm? So for me, I'm understanding it to be that non-Africans can have minority interest.
Non-black people. Afrikaners claim they're African. That's why I'm asking.
I can't dictate who gets to be African and who not.
Okay.
I really can't speak to. I'm having my spiritual experience of my African grandfathers. And if they feel their African grandfathers can speak to that wherever it is that Africa happens, I don't think I get to dictate who gets to be African or not. But they can invest from what I'm able to pick up in instinct and what I heard the bank is standing on. They can have an investment in the African economy. But will the economy be able to serve them as it would serve its African descendants? I wouldn't know.
2 questions. For people that want to be part of the movement that you're pushing and the agenda you're trying to sell, or you're trying to promote rather, would you say at the lowest level that people must just buy shares in African Bank and open an account in African Bank, or would you want them to do something else? You're like, no, buying shares and opening an account means nothing. Or does it actually mean something? Guys, please, as part of fighting for an African economy and to have an African bank, you guys keep speaking about a black bank. Go and buy shares in African Bank. Go and buy, because if more of us who identify as Africans have shares and have accounts, it becomes our bank.
So this is what is happening, and it goes back to now the Zulu King, Mabonya, Mzanyane, and everything, and what the kings are discussing. Because African Bank can't hold African culture, because it's a corporate environment, they're not going to be able to embrace the king. The bank can have a unit. Here we are African Bank, right? And here we partner with an institution that can carry the honor and the heritage. It is possible to, on their balance sheet, have this share scheme is for Africans, partnered with an authority that can honor the king the way the king needs to be honored, so that we can continue to receive the same protection. Also with a bank account, it would have to be a specific bank account that this bank account is a community of people who share in the belief of building Africa for Africans. So far, with what they have, they can't do it because they don't have the spiritual authority, because they can't honor the kings.
Okay, so you need African Bank to change more than...
Not change, just
offer,
include.
Okay.
Yeah, just to have... It can be a division, it can be just an account.
Yeah.
There are ways this thing can be done. It can just be a segment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Patrice Motsepe would go and set up Time Bank, and he'd seem to incorporate the ZCC church and other churches as well. I'm trying to figure out, would you suggest that the leadership at an African Bank go to the kings, Zulu King, the kings, the Makhoseni, the Bafokeng, the Venda King, the Ndebele kings, etc., and say, listen, this is African Bank. This is who we are. We believe we are a bank for you and your people. We'd like you guys to create, or we'd like to help you create accounts, community accounts, kingdom accounts that we can help administer and so that we go to the ethos of why this bank was set up. And that gives you then the spiritual authority and the king authority. That's what you're looking for.
It's a journey they have to go through.
Okay.
Yeah, because the covenant that's there with our ancestors have to be agreed on. The two, when two agree. Now I'm giving power reference.
Sure.
But they would have to agree and remind each other that, remember, our ancestors had covenants for us and to serve us. So let's remember where we come from. And, the kings would then suggest, in our culture, this is what we expect the representation to look like. Because the bank would also have to learn and hear from them.
Yes.
What is it? And then the kings would also have to bless, to say, yes, we do bless you. When a king speaks, they speak for their people as well.
Yes.
Kings have authority over the spirits of the people. So they would have to bless and say, yes, this is where we unite. For me, what I'm reading right now is the will of the people is not yet with the bank. And in order to get the will of the people and the heart of the people with the bank, you have to go through the process of speaking with the kings, having that understanding. The current king would be the one who holds authority over the people. And as they bless you, it releases the will of the people to then align with the current bank. Am I making sense?
I hope so. From a practical perspective, these are just ideas, of course. African Bank sets up a division or a non-profit organization or a foundation.
It's going to be under
focus on
throne room
kings.
talk.
It's going to be?
Under throne room talk. Well,
As
it's
a
supposed
podcast.
to be a podcast, but it's a digital throne.
Okay.
Yeah, throne room talk.
The
has
idea is
authority
to
do that.
access the various kings, at least in Southern Africa, to say, teach us, guide us. We want to help you preserve your culture, preserve your wealth, etc., etc. We've got the bank function if ever you want to use it. But we need you to guide us so that we can maybe tailor-make a unique bank account for the kingdom or for the people. Maybe the Zulu people have got their own division in African Bank called Tlhoaele, which is a division of African Bank which serves Zulu people and it invests in Zulu culture and it's got a division for the vendor people. So African Bank has got a division called VBS for the vendor people, which is tailor-made for the people there. They're something like that on a practical level.
Yeah, I think it has to be a matter of, guys, how do we find each other? We have this institution, it has spiritual authority, it has physical capacity to do the work. But rather than all of us building individually, how do we gather and build? And if the Zulus want to say, but we want to have something that serves the Zulus,
Yes.
then the bank should be open to saying, okay, how do we create something that would be able to honor that? And we'd be able to explain to each other. Obviously, as I speak to kings, they'd be able to say, this thing that you are feeling in your spirit, this is how it exists, right? Because I know from the aspect they have Bakwena as a gateway to the economy, Bakwena are the ones who are in charge of the gateway. They have the spiritual authority, right? Which is why Throne Room Talk is an entity. It's going to be a podcast, but it's an entity of authority. And they would say, under this entity, this is how we wish to be identified. And then that can, because also when we do business as modern people, we sit in the boardroom and we strategize and then we sell a product to the people. In Africa, that's not how that's done. You speak to the people, you meet at the will of the people. Then you go back to the boardroom and strategize. How do we structure this to serve what the people have represented? So it would start with reaching out to the different houses to agree on what does representation look like for this generation, and then going back within and asking, okay, how do we structure that representation? And then both parties can meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have an issue with the banking institutions currently. We have an issue with the corporate culture currently because it doesn't necessarily speak to an African way of living. We're not speaking much about the currency itself, which after we fixed everything, the currency might also not speak to Africans. So do you have any thoughts around creating alternative currencies from the rand? Because the rand might seem like a colonial tool. Do we go back to maybe capturing currency as cattle, cows? Do we want to maybe use blockchain and cryptocurrencies and create some type of Zulu coin, Tswana coin, which may be pegged somehow to the rand or to the dollar, etc., so that when you have the conversation with the kings or the authorities, whatever they may be, it could be religious authorities, you're like, look, we're not coming here to shove a bank account down your throat. We're not coming here to shove African Bank down your throat. We're here to give you and your people your own currency, your own value that you can determine. I had the pleasure of visiting Orania in the Northern Cape. They've got a voucher. It's called a currency to the people out there, which it's actually not. But they've got a voucher called the Ora, which allows people that visit Orania, you take your rands, you convert them into Ora, and then you transact within Orania with Ora. And they're looking into crypto, etc. So I'm just thinking if you were in KwaZulu or in the vendor nation or emaXhoseni, as soon as you land there, you convert your crypto, you convert your rands, so that you're building a Xhosa economy, a Xitsonga economy, etc. It may be pegged to the rand, the dollar, the pound, whatever the case may be, but you now have an alternative currency that speaks to your people. And they our currency is pegged to the number of cows we have. Our currency is pegged to the platinum reserves that we have. Our currency is pegged to amaXhosa clothing and how well it's doing globally. And we've decided to peg our currency to that clothing establishment. How do you feel about Africans saying we want alternative banking, but outside of alternative banking, we also want alternative currencies? Because we don't like the fact that the South African Reserve Bank, the Central Bank of London, the Federal Reserve in America still gets to dictate our worth.
I think if we do too much in one step, we're probably going to end up just having ideas and nothing done because that currency hasn't been tested, does it work or not. Yeah. But if you gather first and you can see that we were able to gather for strength, from there you can determine we are strong enough for a currency. Until you've seen it happen, that we are strong enough to stand for something, everything else becomes ideas and theories, and you're not sure if they're not going to work. So we end up having discussions for way too long, which never happen. So the simpler you keep it, we gather here for a bank account, then you see that, wow, we can actually move towards something. Somebody else with a different research and a different knowledge can present a different idea. Sure. And it's easier for people to buy into something when they've seen it work. When they've seen something happen, people change their minds. Right now, I don't think our generation has seen any significant movement towards anything happening. So we don't really believe. It's like hard to sell anything African to our people because we don't have a reference of, guys, remember when we were united, we achieved this. So I haven't thought that far, but I also think, and also from a reference of studying behavioral economics, change has to be gradual. Sure. When you make it drastic, it becomes beyond what your mind can handle.
And people
neuroplasticity, you have to adjust the mind slowly but surely. And once it's adjusted, then you can end a new thought.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted us to cover?
No, except, guys, you need. I work with spiritual authority. Yes. Like last year, I was commanding on my on my channel. I released 5 minutes videos, and the things that I was saying was honored in nature, right? People need to want the African economy in order for Africa to command its leaders back. I've been having very interesting conversations with Africans, and you realize that the thoughts that speak to the people, God is God. When God said, they will be my people and I will be their God, he was not joking. Africans are listening to a voice that's guiding them. And God knows how to command Africa for the benefit of his people. So people need to have that will, that determination, even if they pray in their little corner. But Q4 is command season. So in September, we get ideas for direction. October, November, we tell nature, we tell Africa what we want. December, Africa commands those who are in authority as to what they need to become to make things happen. April, those things become a reality. So whether we want to start having that conversation so that we communicate to Africa that, hey, Rasogola out there, can we please have an African economy?
Sure.
October, November is the time to do it. And leaders are listening. It's not that people have an idea that leaders are sitting somewhere, they're running dry of ideas. They're not running dry of the ideas. They are running dry of the will of the people. People need to express their will, and then leaders are listening, and I know leaders like the African bank identity. If they don't jump into it, they're gonna have other banks saying, listen, if you don't want to do this, we can do this for you guys. Like, I know the will is there.
Sure.
Other banks are looking into African bank, you guys are sleeping on something big. And maybe they need pressure from outside. Maybe they need to awaken to the fact that Africans need an African messaging. I don't feel like they are focused enough on the African messaging. I don't know what it will take to awaken them to this, but I know that the will of the people will shake the relevant leaders who have the authority to make decisions.
Have you thought of engaging the African Union? I know Julius Malema of the EFF sits there. And maybe even reinvigorating the vision of Muammar Gaddafi, the assassinated leader of Libya, who wanted one currency for the African continent, and easier intra-trade between African nations, if not African states. We've got economic blocks now, but maybe using African Bank as we want to be the bank on the African continent. We want to work with the African Union. We want to champion maybe the one currency that Muammar Gaddafi, etc., wanted for the benefit of African people.
What was the question again?
Would in the work that you're doing, so we spoke about speaking to the kings.
Yes.
Would you consider going to that level?
Yes.
Because we're speaking South Africa now.
It's a movement. It has to progress. Once you start with the leaders and you understand what representation looks like, then because now you have an institution of authority and people who carry the message of the people, it's easier than to say, this entity then stands for this organization represents for this. It has to continue moving. It's not about selling products. It's about building an African economy, and whatever the next step of that direction would lead to, we would have to embrace going there and engaging and growing outside of South Africa and partnering with. I'm realizing that there are a lot of people actually trying things, but individually.
Correct.
So if you have that entity that is focused on, I want to reach out to different organizations, and here, then you go back somewhere and you discuss. We need and that's what Turundum Talk is trying to do, just to be that center where the different voices can speak into this one place where we can share ideas. And because as long as we're not talking to different people, we don't know what idea is out there. We don't know what authority is out there. Some people have impractical ideas of what African banks should be doing. They think everybody who has an idea should be funded, and I often have to correct that they are dealing with people's monies that they invested, and you don't gamble. And also they are regulated, so not everybody's going to get funding out of the good spirit of being African.
Unfortunately.
That's also the other thing that Africans don't understand, that an African bank is not an institution that's going to just hand out money because we are African. It's not.
Yeah.
So those include some of the conversations. Also in banking, what's happening? Like lesaing. What are people doing inside banks? There seems to be a world that is happening in banking when you talk to different people, because there's another African bank that I have a relationship with. And I'm realizing that the conversation that's happening within banks is not the conversation that's happening outside of banks.
Correct.
Can they please help us understand where they are? What are they doing?
Yes.
What do they stand for? What do they represent? How do we help?
Yes.
Because they seem to be holding this, this closed world for them, the strategies, they're exciting each other, they are doing. I'm like, but who are you talking to when the rest of us from the outside don't even understand what you guys are selling? You're creating products, buy this, it's great. For who?
Yeah.
Can we talk?
Lots of documents, lots of jargon, sign here.
Meetings and excited and events and stuff. I'm like, standing for what exactly?
Yeah.
So I think banks also have to open up to be like, guys, realistically, this is what happens in a bank.
Yeah.
For that reason, there are certain things that are expected. We can't do it, right? And people should be able to say, well, to move forward, this is what it's going to take. Yeah. This is the representation that we need.
My last question to you is a question that I asked earlier. I want to ask it again. Looking at the presidents around Africa, looking at the so-called kings that we have here and across the African continent, do you genuinely believe that these are real African leaders that are meant to serve the people? Or if they are not, how do they become removed as maybe puppets of the West or the East, so that we can actually unearth the real leaders of Africa to serve the people?
Okay, so one, I don't think they are African leaders, but I do understand why. We have to acknowledge that for a long time, our identity was interrupted. When we talk about the legacy of apartheid, we have to look at the interruption of identity. There are certain conversations that couldn't happen because of stuff like the Witchcraft Act. You could get in trouble to say, when I'm at African Bank, Mkulu is telling me this. You can be arrested. Why is your Mkulu running the bank? Is your Mkulu disturbing our investments? We're going to arrest you. You are corrupting the people. That happened. So there's conversation that couldn't happen. So I don't think people are intentionally not being African. So the first thing would be, I think there are people who have the right knowledge to say, this is what an African leader looks like. Let us learn from the reference that we don't have. But people also need to realize that politics and vote is not the only indication of will that you can have. There are other ways. Like, for me, I'm focused in banking. I'm not into politics. I don't think politics are the solution. And maybe how you awaken politics to say, you are not the alpha and omega of our lives. You start a movement in banking. When they become irrelevant, they are going to have to start making changes with it. To say, but if people are not paying attention, what do they do with their manifesto thing? We are trying to run a country, but nobody's paying attention. It forces them to change. People don't change from the goodness of their heart. People don't change because they're inspired. People are survival beings. Change is going to happen because people are going to have to survive. And until you put leaders in a position where they have to start surviving to maintain position, they're not going to do anything. So far, we are the ones who are suffering. They are comfortable. Month end, clean salary comes in. When you complain or are shorter. But until you put them in a survival position, then the will come. COVID really showed us that movements can happen and very quick. Decisions don't take as long
100%.
as they're supposed to be taking.
100%.
We need the will of the people. That's all that we need. And leaders need to be made uncomfortable by us doing something for ourselves. And I don't get to say who's African and who's not. I don't know everyone. Sometimes a person has that heart where they want to do things. But institutional authority is also so difficult to navigate when you believe in something and it does not serve whatever agenda of the institution looks like. Then it's hard to find a voice. So how do you tell you, I choose you, you're a good African leader, when now you are not, you're going to corrupt us? Nobody can do that. But I think when people decide on what an agenda is, people who stand for that agenda will somehow come to the surface and we'll see these are people who resonate with the agenda, and those who don't will somehow fade away or something. But we will see Africa will divide between those who believe in being African and serving Africa. They'll be on one side, and those who believe in being Western and black will also pull for what they stand for, because we all stand for something.
Sure.
We have to be comfortable to disagree when we disagree. It's not the age of apartheid where being black had the same reality. Our reality is that we don't have one reality anymore. There are black people who are rich and comfortable. So certain movements don't talk to them because that system works for them. They have every reason to protect the system that's there.
100%.
And if we don't stand up to say, but we believe in this system and we are great in numbers, and like a king's authority is his people. If you are great in numbers and you believe in something and we can gather our strength to have an alternative African identity than being black and Western, it can happen.
Keatlaretse.
Yes.
Tlhoaele. Siswam, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I hope we covered everything. I want to
hope
thank
so.
you for the work that you've taken onto yourself, even though you didn't really choose it. You were forced.
I'm trying to survive.
I hope we can spark the minds of many like-minded people to understand the importance of the work that you're doing. And I wish Throne Room Talk.
Yes.
I wish it the best of success, and I hope it makes the impact that has been bestowed upon you, and you can collaborate with the people that understand what the mission was meant to be.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
You
you.
make it so easy to be. I was so nervous. Thanks. You're so easy to talk to. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kia.